Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the June committee meeting. I would like to do some run-up and then see who else we have on the line. But before that, there is one business that we need to attend to. As we start, I was hoping that Marilyn is going to be here, but she knows it's coming. We will need to vote Kelsey as our new secretary, so she can start officially as her role and take notes. So I will need a motion.
I move to elect Kelsey as our new secretary.
Okay. And then Mary Ellen, do you want a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passed. Welcome, Kelsey.
Woo, thanks.
You can start taking notes. And I believe we have, oh, sorry. Is there anybody who's not a regular committee member that would like to present themselves, so we'll know who else is on the line?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Zoe Stevenson. I live in Mount Baker, kind of like Mount Baker, Rainier Valley. Yeah, I'm a neighbor and parent.
Thank you, Zoe. Forrest?
Hi, I am a resident next to Garfield, a community member, and I'm also a parent of 2 kids at Leschi Elementary.
Oh, hi, Jason. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Let's start then. Forrest, I believe that you're probably here to talk about the safety improvements at Garfield, or are you here about Leschi?
Specifically 23rd.
Okay. Then, I'm sorry, 23rd, is that next to Garfield or
Garfield,
Leschi?
yes.
Okay,
yes,
well,
Garfield.
let's go with that. Zoe, would you like to go first in public comments?
Yeah, sure. So I live in Mount Baker, which is South Seattle, and my street is 37th Avenue South, and it has a lot of safety problems, and it's also the street that kids use to walk to two South End schools. One is John Muir Elementary, and one is Franklin High School. So every day out my window, I watch kids walking to school along the street, but this street has no sidewalks, and it's not a hugely long section of the street that has no sidewalks. It's 2 blocks of the street. The 3700 and the 3800 block of the street have no sidewalks, but it's the main north-south street that is not an arterial in the area. So 37th is between, it's a north-south street that goes through, which is sort of nestled between Rainier Avenue South, which is an arterial, and 38th, which is also an arterial. And people have evidently, according to my neighbors who've lived here a long time, they've evidently always speeded up and down this street. They come up York and then they speed down 37th. But especially recently, both Rainier and 38th have had some traffic calming installed, which is great for those streets. It's important and good. But 37th is this big, wide residential street with no speed bumps, no traffic circles. It's missing a few of the cross streets that come through because it's on a hill. So people really, really get going very fast on this street. And then it's also because it's the residential street, it's the safe routes to school street for, in particular, the John Muir elementary school kids. So it's a really bad combination of a street with no, so nothing to stop a car, and then no sidewalks and a lot of pedestrians. The other thing that's important about this street is in a few months, later this summer, there's a plan to open a new park, which is really needed in this area, and we're all really delighted about. It's the new North Rainier Land Banked Park site that'll provide a park for a lot of the kids in this area who don't have a good park in walking distance. The 37th is the way to get up and down the ridge because there's a pedestrian stair on 37th. It's this wonderful pedestrian stair. It's called the Charlestown Street Hill Climb. But ironically, this hill climb dumps out right in the middle of this stretch between on the 3700 and 3800 block that have no sidewalks. So all the kids use this sidewalk to get to school, or this like no sidewalk area. They use the stair to get to school. And my elderly neighbors use this to get down to Safeway to get their groceries. It's just really heavily used. It's how you get down to public transit. And it's really heavily used, and it's really not a safe street. And it wouldn't be that hard to fix because it's just 2 blocks. It happens to just be the 2 blocks where like cars have gotten up to like 45 miles an hour and they're speeding past all these pedestrians. So I keep trying to like write to people, and I kind of almost feel like I'm screaming into the void, and everyone's kind of like, oh yeah, what a shame. Or like no one responds or anything like that. I have a bunch of pictures if it's useful to have pictures that I'd love to like send an email so someone could see. I have a little map with the drawing that shows where the missing sidewalks are. And, I have a bunch of different, like John Muir kids said, like I can take their picture, or like Franklin High School kids said, like I can take their picture, like walking in the street with the cars and trucks. But I kind of don't know what I can do to move this forwards. So can you help me?
Yes, first of all, on our website, we have the committee's email address. If you could, since you're for now, and you can.
Yeah. I'll send you all my little maps
You could,
and photos.
and your contact information, so we could follow through.
Yeah,
that.
contact.
Yeah.
Do you want my contact information for the record, or you just want an email?
Email is fine with whatever
Okay.
you have, so we could pass along.
Thank you. Okay.
As that, folks, do you know if it's?
I've contacted SDOT. They say that we're like just outside of the priority for all these things. So it's like you have to be within a quarter mile of the school, and we're within 0.3 miles of the school. And you have to be within 1/8 of a mile of a bus route, and we're within 0.2 miles of a bus route. And there's all these things where like we're just not quite close enough. But also like the fact is it's easy to go like north-south in Seattle, but there just aren't that many east-west connectors. So this is the one that people use. Like everybody's kind of funneled onto this street to go north. So I know that we're not like technically within a quarter mile of the school, but we're really close, and it's the street that all the kids walk on.
Zoe, this is Sarah calling with SDOT.
Hi.
Have you been in contact? Hi, thank you for reaching out. Have you been in contact with Katie Belsada?
Yeah, I'm in contact with Katie. I've emailed her about it. She came and she looked at the site and she said like we don't have money to like work on this right now. But like and then after she came out to look at the site, that was great. But I've emailed her back a few times since then. I mean, I'm sure she's really busy. But I basically haven't. She hasn't really responded. Like I said, like what can I do? Like how do we move this forward? What's the next thing? And I just haven't gotten a response from her. I'm sure she's busy.
I'm glad that you're in contact with her. She's the right person, and she's great. She's really caring. And I think that, right now we don't have, I'm not super surprised that she wasn't able to commit to something, because we just we have a lot of unknowns with budget right now. But I'm glad that you're in touch with her, because I think that will be a big help.
Okay. Yeah. No, I am. So, step one, we got it. But I don't know if there's something like special powers that this like committee might have. And like, I think that it is actually a pretty wide street. So I think it would be easy to put up, those like fiberglass posts that are like, it wouldn't really stop a car, but it kind of like shows that like, this is a pedestrian zone, but don't go through here. Like they could put up those little posts and make a pedestrian lane on the sidewalk or on the street itself. I mean, like there's stuff that you could do to make a safe walkway even before you could install a sidewalk, that I think would be really valuable to avoid like a pedestrian injury or death.
That, yes, Mary Ellen.
Yeah, so it sounds like the real question, you know, is kind of like how do we keep following up on this? How do we get to that next step?
Yeah.
So do you have a suggestion of, you know, even if it's in 6 months after SDOT is through this huge push that they're working on now, how do we keep it from falling off the table? How do we get to of a next, you know, a next step happening?
Yeah, I think one, you have a great contact in Katie, and then another is this area is a future home zone.
And I
Right,
talked to
is-
Rahi as well.
Okay, good.
And it seems like they're just in like the public comment gathering phase. And so
Yeah,
I put
so
in a
this is-
comment, and like some of my neighbors
Perfect,
put in a
okay.
comment, but like.
Okay,
Yes.
that's great. I mean, and because those are the two efforts, Katie with the sidewalks program and then Rahi with the home zone program where,
Home zone.
where
Yeah,
it
It's a good
seems like there could be the most opportunity.
And Sarah, alternative sidewalk treatments is pretty common solution at home, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Margaret.
Yeah, I mean, do you have a sense of like, you know, I kind of like talked to both of those people, and then again, you know, like they're busy. It kind of like it feels like it fell off the radar a little bit. I don't know, you know, what's a reasonable like. They should get back to you within 2 months with like the next step or something like that, or how these things usually work.
I'm gonna jump in. I know you can't see us because you're on the phone, but
Sorry, yeah.
Forrest had her hand up first, and so I'm gonna let Forrest
sorry.
go, and then I'm gonna talk for a second. This is Margaret. Forrest?
Okay.
Thanks. I do see that the next point on the agenda from 8:45 to 9 is about Garfield, so I don't know if I should reserve my comments for that section, or if you want me to provide my public testimony now. I can maybe do it in 1 minute.
Yeah. Let's connect and let's just finish with Zoe. And then, yes, Margaret? Okay. Fine.
So-
okay, sorry. And I just saw that your email that you couldn't join. I'm glad to see that you joined. Sorry. Go ahead.
Zoe's point, I'm curious from SDOT, is there the Safe Routes to School program in theory is about the entire route within the walking boundary, which is a little larger than what I'm hearing has been.
There's
So
the walking school bus.
Zoe, hold on, please. Can I finish my comment? I know you can't see us, and I'm sorry that's hard. But I would like to hear from the Safe Routes to School folks at SDOT, who we have at least some representation from here, because the Safe Routes to School program should extend to cover more than just the block or two around the school, because that's what a route is. And so I wanted to check in with the Safe Routes to School SDOT folks to hear what they have to say about that further connection along the route and how that fits in.
Yeah, for Safe Routes to School, we don't have like a quarter mile from school hard line. It could be that was a number that was shared through like a prioritization framework that the sidewalks team uses. I'm not sure like exactly the number that they use, but in terms of like having to prioritize, because we have so many blocks across the city that don't have sidewalks. Yes, I think they would prioritize if it's within a quarter mile of the school. But yeah, for Safe Routes to School, it's not like we have a hard line for blocks that are right up adjacent to the school.
Okay. In the interest of time, can I ask the Safe Road to School people to follow up with Zoe about kind of like the process and timeline and
Yeah, I think we can be in touch with Rahi and Katie, who have their efforts going on right there. And then, yeah, Brooke and Diane and I are well aware of the walking school bus route that touches this stretch. We're in close contact with that group. So yes, happy to just continue the conversation until we know more on budget.
okay.
Okay, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And I'll send an email to the email on your website.
Thank you.
Sarah, will you, let's just put it in the notes too, because you know, there are so many things to check in on, but something like in September, check in on this process and find out if there's like a next step that's been identified, something like that. Does that work?
Okay, let's move to Garfield Forest. Do you want to open?
Sure, thank you so much. So I'm a resident at 23rd and East Alder, which is on one of the corners of Garfield. 23rd is an arterial. I have been living here since March of 22, so 3 years-ish. I live in the townhouse adjacent to the one that was shot 3 times in one of the drive-by shooting incidents. But even before, you know, the multiple incidents of gun violence involving cars, I've been super concerned about that corner. I've seen more bike and car and pedestrian and car accidents than I can even count at this point. There's a lot of speeding and the visibility, because both ways, East Alder and 23rd, it kind of like it's a hill on both sides. So there's a lot of blindness combined with speeding and some just foliage and things that obstruct the view. So I believe that the traffic calming light that was put in at MLK and East Alder would be really awesome to apply that there. If not speed bumps or a 4-way stoplight, at least like a stoplight that occasionally turns red, that has an activated by bicyclists sensor situation. There's a lot of kids that live on the opposite corner, and with the hot weather, they've been playing outside a lot. They're little kids, they're on scooters, and I'm just really scared. I don't let my kids out in the area to play on the road. And I'm just so concerned about the safety of people who are traveling through the area and the residents of the area, not just from the recent gun violence, but just the traffic is crazy. Yeah, thank you.
And I believe you are here to talk about a similar issue.
Ina. Yeah, Ina Percival. I'm a Garfield parent, CD community member for a long time. And I happen to work at Metro, but I'm here as a parent mostly, who is, you know, been talking with a lot of other parents and is really concerned about a variety of things surrounding the issues of gun violence in the community and around Garfield High School. While the most recent incident wasn't a drive-by, the vast majority of the incidents have been drive-by shootings and or have involved escapes in a vehicle. And so one of the challenges right now is that, you know, there's a big congregation of kids around lunchtime, especially in the front of the school, as well as after school at bell release. And then there are kids who are transferring, you know, between the buildings as well, going through the parking lot in 23rd. And so there is growing parental interest in taking some traffic interdiction measures, as well as I was at an EastPac meeting a few weeks ago, and the deputy chief said if the community would support it, SPD would support. I don't think we would have any difficulty getting other support. The fire chief also was supportive. And the idea would be to detour traffic along 23rd starting before the bell time at lunch. None of the shootings have been in the morning. Apparently, folks like to sleep in. So before lunch and then until after school, and only allowing buses, emergency vehicles and delivery drivers, delivery trucks and so forth that are clearly marked and identified to go through that. It would do, there are some traffic slowing mitigations on 25th, but I think it's insufficient. That's another route that has been sometimes used. But on 23rd, if we could do this and at least start it as a pilot and assess it after a period of time, it would reduce access to the big, huge target of all the kids congregating in the front of the school along 23rd. It would incentivize parents to let their kids use the bus, which there are more and more parents are not wanting their kids to take the bus because of the incidents around the bus stop, because it's right in front of school. And it would also, with the traffic interdiction, that significant might also increase security, because usually there's some SPD presence in the vicinity. So that's what some of us are really wanting to propose, and that's why I came to speak with you this morning. I think that it's not going to solve the problem. I'm not going to pretend that it is. There is a multifaceted approach that needs to be undertaken. I think the mayor has started that with his recent proposal around supporting various interdictions around mental health and pathfinders, funding pathfinders and so forth at the school. We need a public health campaign. And I think we need to look at how we can increase safety around the school grounds and the school area and again, particularly because most of these, vast majorities of these shootings are drive-by shootings. And those who have been participating have also escaped quickly in motor vehicles, because it's such an easy thing to do along 23rd. So that's what I wanted to bring to you all today, and I'm happy to, answer questions that you might have.
Thank you. Yes, it sounds like there are several complex and compound issues along that stretch of road. And I wonder, as that representative, if you know what is in the pipeline currently. Are there any conversations about traffic mitigation, or is that?
Well, as I said, it came up at the EastPac meeting as a result of, sadly, we have this tendency to, because there are so many shootings and guns are so ubiquitous, we've developed a certain tolerance level, right? So there's a lot of attention when there's an incident, and then it dissipates. Mm-hmm. And then when the young woman was shot right by our bus stop, there was more attention. And that's when, frankly, I offered this as a solution to another idea that some folks had offered, which is really not a practical or useful solution, which was to surround our bus stops in bulletproof glass, which isn't doable and also creates other safety and security issues. So I offered this as a solution, and it's something that people seem to be very supportive of. And the idea is that, and now we've had a death. And again, this particular shooting wasn't a drive-by, but so many of them have been. And frankly, our kids are looking to adults to say, what's it going to take for you all to do something, and when are you going to do it? And I would love for those kids to come in to school in September and see that there are multiple things that we as a community, as a city, as adults who are guiding these young people are willing to undertake in order to enhance their safety and security. So that's why we're proposing this as one of several solutions that we could do to help mitigate the damage.
Sarah Dan, do you know where the conversations currently are, or if there are any? Yeah, sorry, Dan. Yeah, go ahead.
We haven't been involved in these conversations. I think that would be, many levels above us. And so I think the committee could discuss if it's something that you would want to pursue above us.
Yeah.
But yeah,
to Force's point about issues with repeated collisions and just ability to slow down around that stretch of road.
Right. It's something that we could check with our Vision Zero team on, but yeah, Diane, I don't think that Diane and I have been involved with anything.
Okay. Would you be able to check in with Project Zero and see maybe how we can, use both sides, both Safe Ride to School and Project Zero, to help address speed and safety along 23rd?
Yeah.
Yes, Forrest.
I do believe, sorry, I don't have the right terminology, if it's the greenway or but they are making 23rd into a greenway, like a reduced traffic. And so I don't know if maybe getting together with that committee or people associated with that, if that would lead to, successfully adding some traffic calming measures, just banding together.
Yeah.
My son, who bikes to Garfield from the southwest, uses that Alder section, and I was kind of horrified when I had him lead us to Garfield and back one day, because I was like, "Whoa, can't we use Jefferson? Jefferson seems safer." And he's like, "No, the cool kids' bike rack is over on the high side by the football stadium, so we have to use Alder." And I was like, "Oh." So anyway, personal anecdote supporting Forrest there.
Okay, so it sounds like for next steps, we could see what support could we offer and can we get from Project Zero and the Greenway project, and maybe create some synergy to help prioritize and move things along. Yes, Marilyn.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk, I mean, that sounds great. It seems like we should pursue all avenues, but then also specifically about the question of the temporary school closure, rerouting of traffic, that would essentially be making 23rd into a school street, right? If only buses and limited traffic is allowed during school hours. And I think right now that program is limited to streets on residential in residential areas. And I just want to ask you, Diane and Sarah, what do you think of that idea? Do you think that it's feasible? Is that something that the city would pursue, expanding the program to allow it to be in places that have busier traffic?
Yeah, it's a precedent right now that doesn't exist. We would have to okay that with our traffic operations division, and I don't think they would be supportive right now, because that does divert traffic onto those smaller residential streets, which aren't meant to hold that volume of traffic. So right now it's something that we don't allow. But if there are folks, like Sarah was saying, levels above us that are supportive of this and have a vision for it and have the tools to pull this off, then yeah, I mean, we could definitely consider it, but that's not a call that we can make, and typically it has not been supported by our operations team.
So maybe
and a lot of times it's like physical. Oh, sorry, Mary Ellen, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, it sounds like you, Sarah, as the Safe Routes to School coordinator at SDOT, would be a good person to loop into this conversation that you've been having, Ina, with people at SDOT and at SPD to talk about this idea of expanding the school streets program. So maybe you guys should get connected via email and get into those conversations.
And I know my inclination would be to get some, and this would be very much coordination with Metro, is to get some physical hardscape on the street to physically slow traffic. So I know speed cushions can be hard on big arterials like that, but That would be, but having that, or having, curb bulbs, just things that make it less of a wide open space for people to speed through. Because one initial thought with closing that block is that even with our school streets, which are on residential streets, we have, people sometimes don't follow the signs. And so I think that having something physical, preventing people from driving fast would be my inclination.
I think that's a good point, and I think it would be a good addition. And I think, pilot, one of the advantages that I think we have around detouring traffic in the particular locations is that we have, alternatives, for example, like MLK. So it's not purely residential streets in terms of the options that we have for redirecting folks in the area. I mean, I won't go through all the streets, but we have a little bit more flexibility than I think is sometimes potentially available. And again, I would recommend starting it as a pilot.
Yeah. So we'll need to move to the next presentation, but Sarah, could you see if could you explore if there is any conversations in high levels, maybe people that attended that meeting, about maybe there is a political interest to expand the street school, and because if there is an opportunity and there is a way, then we should capitalize on political interest while it's hot.
Yeah.
Yes, Marilyn.
And I can jump in one more time. Yeah, and I agree totally with you, Noah. And then also, Sarah, your point about speed cushions, that's a great point. And it would be really good to get something in over the summer, even if there's more that we're working on, among parents at Garfield. There's a lot of a sense of like, just how can I send my kid back there, and today's last day of school. So we have a little window to make some improvements that will make people feel more confident. I know it's a short timeline, but there is a lot of urgency around it now. If we could get some improvements in before school started, I think the community would deeply appreciate that. First, I just wanted to ask if there was anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be helpful or if there's a way to just compile all of the police incident reports of like the accidents. There must be a way.
Yes, and we usually have SPD representative on call that I believe is not here today, but we can definitely ping him and get a compilation of all the reported incidents. Okay, so thank you so much. Oh, sorry, things just moved along on my screen. And of course, we will follow up. I believe our next working meeting is in August, so we'll have plenty of time to get as much information as we can and see what can be done. And thank you for coming today. Okay, thank you for waiting. The folks are here to talk about Agricourse Middle School capital project. Would you like to share a presentation?
Yes. Hi, can you guys hear me? This is Sarah Wilder. I'm not sure if Brad, you want to do a quick intro or if you want me to just jump in.
Yeah, I will just say I'm here for project leadership. My name is Brad Tong. I'm the principal in charge of SPS, meaning Seattle Public Schools projects with our practice, and the principal in charge for Aki Kurose Middle School, this project. My colleague and client, whom some of you know, Vince Gonzalez, unfortunately is in a Seattle Public Schools board committee meeting, their Bex BTA levy, Bex BTA oversight committee happening at the same time. That's why he could not be here today, but he really wanted to. I'm gonna let Sarah take it from here, but nice to be here and to see you all. Thanks so much.
Great. All right. Thank you, everyone, for having us. We are excited to talk about the Aki Kurosi Middle School modernization project that is upcoming. I'm just going to mention a couple other team members who are on the line. We have Todd McBrien, who is the principal transportation engineer with Heffron Transportation, and he'll be able to help answer questions. Amy Vanderhorst, principal in charge with Integris, is also here supporting our efforts. And then Kim Fong from SOJ, who is the project manager, is also here. So I'm going to dive into the project scope. The modernization the design phase was funded by the BEX 5 levy. And then construction is anticipated to be funded by the BEX 6 levy, which will be authorized in February of 2025. The scope of the project includes modernization of the majority of the building. It's going to be pretty extensive. There'll be seismic upgrades, energy code upgrades, likely all the windows will be replaced. Mechanical, plumbing, and electrical systems will all be replaced. Fairly significant program moves within the building, and then all the finishes will be upgraded and kind of ready for students to come back in. The portion that you see in red, and I'm going to go ahead and get my laser pointer here, I think. The portion in red is Unit A. It's known as Unit A. That's a one-story portion of the building. That will be demolished as part of the project, and then there will be a new academic wing built in its place. Together, the existing building and the new wing will provide capacity for up to 1,000 students. Currently, the building holds 900 students. So it's an increase of about 100 students capacity-wise. So I'm going to go ahead, go to the next slide, talk through the schedule. So we are here in the middle of 2024. We've just completed pre-design and are starting the design process. As mentioned, the BEX 6 vote comes up in 2025. We'll be continuing to work with the contractor to bid and award the project. And then in summer of 2026, students will move to the interim site at Van Asselt, and we will start construction. Construction will take place for 2 years with students off-site, and then students will move back in August of 2028. So looking at the existing conditions around transportation on the site, there are two main entries off of South Graham Street, or two entries. The existing main entry is to the west here, and then there's another existing building entry to the east. Both of those are inaccessible, so that creates problems for getting students into the building from buses. And let's see, there are two service areas over here on 42nd. And then the buses, full-size buses load off and drop off on Graham Street. And then there's a paved lane to the north that is between and kind of straddles the Parks property to the north, Brighton Playfield, and the school site. And currently that is where the special ed buses do their drop off and pickup. And there are also private contracted vehicles that access that and drop off there. And as well, there are existing unpermitted parking areas that are accessed, or I guess the courtyard parking area is accessed from that paved lane. There's another parking area that is accessed from 39th. The parking is all unpermitted, so that is something to keep in mind. As part of kind of clarifying the property boundary and moving forward, the project will likely result in the loss of the use of that paved lane. And so with upgrading accessible entries on Graham Street, we're looking to move the special ed and private vehicle drop-off to Graham Street and to the side streets so that we can safely get students into the building without the use of that drive paved lane to the north. And I'll go into how that's getting relocated in the next couple slides. Let's see. And then, okay, so zooming out a little bit, here's the school in the middle here, and then the Brighton Playfield is directly to the north. There are several bus routes that are on MLK, as well as on Rainier Avenue South over here. There's also a future light rail station that is scheduled to be installed at Graham and MLK. So that's just a little bit of overall context for some of the students getting to site. Then looking at proposed transportation and circulation on the site, in and around the site. So the project includes modernization of the existing facility, like we talked about. We're going to be meeting the new middle school education specifications, looking at improved learning environments, spaces for school community gatherings, increased student capacity, and then enclosed and protected outdoor spaces for students. So kind of moving away from using the a lot of the site for parking. And like I mentioned, the entries on Graham will be upgraded to be accessible. So that is a key part of the project. Students access the site, you can see here in the light blue lines. There are pedestrian crossings here at 39th and Graham. And then also they access here on 42nd. They can come from, also from the north along the park. And then in the mornings, students will all be directed to the main entries on Graham. The existing main entry is to the west, and we're kind of flipping that to get better program adjacency inside the building. So the main entry will be here on the east, and then there'll be a secondary entry on the west that will remain. Bicycle access routes have been kind of coordinated. There's long-term bike parking proposed here near the rear of the site, along that paved lane and adjacent to the playfield, and then short-term bike parking within view of the new main entry on Graham Street. All buses loading and unloading will be relocated to Graham. There's room for all of that to take place there. Contracted vehicles with SPS will be able to drop off and pick up in the automobile load zones noted here on 39th and then also on 42nd. The school has found that a clockwise direction works pretty well, so they would be communicating that drop off in the morning would be on 39th, and then 42nd pickup would happen there. Additional family drop off for able-bodied families would be informally dispersed through the neighborhood. And then car, walking, and bike pools will be part of the transportation management plan that will be developed in future years. The service area here on 42nd is there were two in the previous plan. It will be consolidated to just one service area. So custodial and kitchen deliveries will all take place here. And then there is limited parking on site for ADA and visitors. We're looking at between 10 and 20 stalls here on the west side of the site. And then, like we mentioned, the courtyard will not be used for parking anymore. Let's see. So I think that covers all of the information on this slide. I'm going to go next to your best practices for school traffic design and just talk about how we are meeting those guidelines where we can. So the first one is locating school entrances near safe places to walk across the street. So getting those entries as close to the corner as possible. We are utilizing the existing, we have the existing building constraints. So we are kind of maintaining those. They're pretty close to both corners. So we feel like we are meeting that pretty well. Both entries here on Graham. The second one is allocating space to education and community rather than private car infrastructure. Here we're showing this is going to be a student courtyard, number 2 in the middle here, with prioritizing, educational spaces, outdoor learning, and a community garden, places for students to gather right outside the commons. So it should be a big upgrade for learning environments on the site. The third one is pedestrian routes should not be crossed by car traffic. By eliminating this access to the north to this paved lane, we are really diminishing the number of pedestrian and car conflicts and overlaps. We don't have preschool drop-off on this site, but the next one, bicycle access, should be convenient. There are new bike access paths that are located and coordinated to avoid vehicle movements. And then short-term and long-term bike parking are located, as discussed with the school, fairly away from the street for the long-term bike parking, and then convenient with supervision from the main office for the short-term bike parking on Graham. And then school bus loading and unloading, the guideline is basically to keep that on the streets rather than dedicating site space for it. So we have retained and extended that school bus loading and unloading zone on Graham Street. Even if there was a desire to put it on site, there's no room. So it makes sense to utilize Graham for that. And finally, number 7, medically fragile and special needs students. They will be able to use this separate accessible entrance here on Graham, the sort of secondary entry that is to the west. And then if further separation is desired or needed, they would be able to use an accessible entrance over on the west side here, accessed from 39th, either from 39th, or it could be there. The accessible parking would be right here inside on the site. I think that is what we have to cover, and we would be happy to go through any questions or comments you have. We can dive back into anything in the slides if you like.
Yeah, Margaret?
Yeah, this is great. I appreciate all the work you've been doing, and I always love to see people using our suggestions for how to design it. It really has, to my relief, reduced the number of potential conflicts that we see in these diagrams. And I know that you are working with existing infrastructure, and so it's kind of as best you can do. But I'm a little curious about that area around the staff parking, because I'm trying to in my head figure out if I'm biking to that long-term bike parking from the
Let's see here, go back one more.
southwest, or if I'm walking from, I'm guessing it's the northwest, how people will, oh, you can't see my finger, ha ha ha. Anyway, how students and I guess staff, will interact with that entry and exit to the visitor and staff parking. Just, I'm assuming there's some detail there that I can't see in those routes there.
So that you're asking about this route coming from the north pedestrian route, and then also, I guess, bike route, which we're not showing there.
Yeah.
On 39th. I don't know. Todd, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, so I think that there's a couple of options. Certainly, access through the park is something that we've discussed with the principal of the school, so that can happen. 39th is also a greenway, I think, so bicycle access can occur that way. One of the things that we still need to work out is how to deal with the parks department's paved lane, because we're pulling the access to car parking out of that central courtyard, but that's still owned by the parks, the paved lane. And so we need to work with them on how to create maybe some access control that perhaps bicycles could continue to use that and not allow cars, especially during school arrival and dismissal. But that's just off our site and somewhat out of our 100% control. So that's still something that we've been discussing as a team as to how to deal with that and keep cars off of that paved lane even after we've removed parking from that central courtyard.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So we have found that some of the most erratic and exciting traffic is parent traffic. I say as a parent, and so it is kind of exciting to see that intermixed with that entry point. And there's probably, some pathway there that I just can't see given the scale of the drawing, or at least I'm hoping, because if I had an 11-year-old on a bike on the sidewalk heading north, I'd be, anyway. Mary Ellen, I'll stop talking.
Well, Stephen actually was waiting.
Hi, I'm Stephen Richard, Director of Transportation for Seattle Public Schools. When I have to look at stuff like this, I have one go-to person I like to have with me. Her name is Evelyn Green. And she indicated to me that she had some concerns about the size of the load zone for that many buses, I believe was the concern.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
the load zone is gonna be on the Graham side from 39th to 42nd, right? Right now, it's 7 big buses in the front, and I think we have 4 that's on the pave in the back courtyard. And you wanna move them all up front. If I'm not mistaken, that the special ed would be on the 42nd side, where they would unload.
The special ed buses would be closer to the 39th Street or 39th
Okay.
Avenue.
So in essence, the special ed buses will be front in line. They'll be the first ones in line. Plus, at this time, I think they have 7 big buses, and they all won't fit there. The buses are a little bigger now than what they used to be. It's a 72 pack.
Yeah, the information that we have is that we do have the space to fit those buses on Graham. In this drawing, we're showing 6 special ed buses and 8 general ed buses. I should also mention there's an existing drop-off area for cars on vehicle load and drop-off area that is being taken away from Graham Street. You can see that here in the.
Right,
So
right.
we're dedicating the whole frontage on Graham to buses loading and unloading.
Yeah, I still think that's gonna be pretty tight to get them there, because buses now are bigger than what they used to be. They're all 72 pack.
Well, that and the
And
special needs
the
buses.
special needs buses, some are lit as big as the 66, so to go out there and check it out and see, well, today probably be a good day to go and get an actual visual, how many buses that they have and would fit in that area. Because it's 30 feet, I think, from the curb, the buses has to be back.
Like I alluded to before, I trust Evelyn on this stuff. If she says this is something to be concerned about, I would look into it.
Sure, yeah, we definitely will.
That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Ellen?
Yeah, a couple of quick things. First, it looks the long-term bike parking at the back, that's great. People feel safer leaving their bikes there. I want to verify though that there's going to be an entrance that's open to students when they park there so that they don't have to leave their bike and then walk around 3 blocks and come in on the front.
I think that's something that we still need to work out with the principal. They would prefer, for supervision reasons, that everyone comes to the front entrances. But I hear your point, and I just think it's something we need to keep discussing with them, because from operation standpoint, they would like to, just a second, sorry. They would like to have all the students come to Graham.
Yeah. Okay, well, so yeah, I guess then that's something that needs to be resolved, because getting back to that question of convenient bicycle access, if there's no entrance to the building back there, that is not convenient bicycle access, right? It's quite the reverse.
Yeah, I definitely hear that point.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to ask, because we are currently working with SDCI to revise the code regarding school construction in order to eliminate the most common departures. Looks like you guys are going to need a departure for bus loading, one for parking. Are there other departures that this project will be seeking?
I don't have the list in front of me, but actually bus loading, we don't need a departure. And it does not appear that we need a departure for parking, because the parking is not permitted.
I think you may not. Yeah, the code would require this site to have more than 100 parking spaces. And
right, if we were building a new building, you're correct.
So is this a less than 4,000 square foot expansion?
It's not, but we and I don't have all the there's been a lot of research to figure out, what are the parking requirements, and it's kind of a somewhat special case because of the spaces that we have, and that we have most of the existing the parking requirements for the school are derived by the gym, bleacher count, and auditorium, and those spaces are not increasing in size by more than 10%. So from the SPS land use perspective, there are no new parking requirements. So there wouldn't be a departure that is needed to provide the parking that we are proposing.
Okay. The code's written very broadly. I guess I'll circle back with Vince. Maybe because you're demolishing existing, it doesn't count as a greater than 4,000 square foot, but just to retain on-street bus loading, as you probably know, requires a departure, but certainly to expand it. So that's good. Just curious, because we're always looking to get this case in front of City Council, so I'm just trying to collect lists of currently affected projects.
Ryan?
Yeah, I sort of just wanted to echo the point that Mariel and Margaret are making, that I think overall the pedestrian and bike flow here with all the buses on the front on Graham, would be really worried about you're just basically creating a log jam of flow and kids and the buses all coming in there at once. And it looks like it's just a regular sidewalk, like a 3-foot wide sidewalk in front of there, that there's not any additional sort of space for more people sort of coming in. It just seems like it's going to be a really difficult sort of pedestrian plan with those buses all unloading right there onto that small sidewalk and those entrances.
We are just now kind of diving into whether the sidewalk ends up being replaced or not. And there is a desire with kind of these crossing paths to give additional space for students to hang out and gather when they get there and when they're ready to leave. Because now you're right, there's basically a sidewalk and kids are kind of up on the lawn, and there's not really a place for them. But that is something that we are, like I said, we're just kind of getting started with design, and I hear your point that we need to consider expanded space for those students there.
Yeah, I'm nervous about the access only and all the front. I understand the principal's point about this, right? But if that's the way they want to go, the existing sort of just landscaping, lawn, sidewalk situation in front doesn't seem like it's going to work too well, and might need to be something that have to consider scope of the plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we did confirm that the pathways, to get those to be accessible, we can do that with a 1 to 20 slope, so they wouldn't need to be ramps. We can do it with just sloped walkways and make them accessible, and a lot wider than 3 feet for sure.
Margaret, do you still have your hands up?
Sorry, that's a legacy. I'll lower it.
Okay, Sarah? Sarah, I believe is that you have your hand up?
Yeah, so sorry, we were on mute. Okay, this is Sarah with SDOT, and it'd be great if some street improvements could be incorporated into the levy to support this project. What the main priority I would hone in on is getting those RFB push button crossing beacons on Graham on both sides, 39th and 42nd. That would be my number 1. But I'd have a whole list if there's other things to put in there. I assume that this would trigger things like curb ramps. Yeah, okay, great. Especially if you're focused on getting more accessible access. And you would also be able to put in all-way stops on the residential streets right adjacent to the school. So both at 42nd and Spencer and at 42nd and Bateman. And then echoing what Ryan said about if there's any possibility for widened sidewalk there with a more robust planter strip to get some better buffer for between kids walking on the sidewalk and the street, and then street trees. But I could email that list. I know it is long.
Marianne?
Yeah, Sarah, you bring up a great point. And I wonder when will the project begin applying for the street improvement permit?
I'd have to double check back with our schedule, but that would be 2025 spring.
After the levy?
Yes.
Because it would be, you know, where you rarely have an opportunity to consider what will be required in the street improvement permit or what we might like to add before the levy funds are allocated. This is a unique opportunity. So yeah, maybe you, Sarah Calling, and the project team could get together to talk about that. It might be worth reaching out to the SIP team as well at SDOT, because that is something where there have been some unfortunate, like, real failures in terms of spiraling requirements that end up eating into the school's budgets on some pretty recent projects. So this is a great opportunity to nail down, you know, how many of these curb ramps are we going to have to do? Can we put the rapid flashing beacons in? Since we're going for the levy money right now, you know, it's a small add-on in the greater scheme of things, but it really hurts to get out of the school budget. So that's a big opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good point. We can definitely circle back with Vince and Brad and see if we can get some earlier meetings to understand that scope ahead of February.
Great.
And then, sorry, could you repeat the year that, will they be at Van Asselt for 2 years?
Correct. 26 to 28.
Okay.
Any other last minute questions or comments?
I just had a question about Van Asselt. When we're moving to temporary locations, I'm just curious for maybe the SDOT folks or even the planning folks here, what does that trigger in terms of possibilities for improvements to that temporary location? The temporary location is already accommodating interim schools right now. So Mercer Middle School is already occupying there right now. Okay. The Van Asselt site. It's already accommodated another elementary school. And so that's already been through a permitting and improvement process, including street improvements at that site.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, well, thank you so much to the project team.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We will send the, I'll send the PowerPoint, and then I think we'll look forward to getting the comments kind of noted and go from there as we develop further.
And Sarah Calling, you guys will, you know, you've got your wish list. Let's get that all in the levy. You guys will be in touch via email.
Yeah, Sarah, hopefully I can get your contact info, maybe through Noah, or you could put it in the chat.
Sure, let me see here.
Thank you.
May I ask a question of Noah, if you can hear me? This is Brad.
Yes.
What is your preferred protocol to funnel any and all communications between the project and the committee? Should they all go through you? I just want to respect whatever protocols you have.
That's a good question. We actually don't have any set protocol. I'm happy to be the touch point if needed to disseminate information to the rest of the community. If there's any like one-on-one communication, especially between the like a professional staff level, that the committee doesn't need to be involved in necessarily, no need to loop me in.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Mariellen, I see you have. Oh, I thought you had something to say. Sorry.
Oh, no, I agree.
Yes,
I mean, we're flexible. We just want to honor whatever the you know, your desire and protocols are as to the funneling, as well as being kept in the loop by CC. But you know, one-offs between, especially jurisdictional permitting staff at the city and our project team.
We don't need to be in it, and you know, if there's anything that we do need to know about, I think the city staff is going to bring it up, and
Okay,
SDOT staff is going to bring it up.
fantastic. Okay, thank you. Really helpful comments, and I just on behalf of the project team, it was really great to hear all the comments and concerns. So thank you.
Great. It's useful for you as well. Yes, Marilyn.
Last thing I'll add is please do keep us in mind as a resource, though, if you
Yes.
get, you know, pushed by anyone along the way to do things that are, you know, maybe less good for the pedestrian circulation of the students around the site, or if you're you know, if there's a log jam, you're just struggling to move things with parks or something. Sometimes, you know, because we're a little bit public facing, if we can send some emails and help get stuff unstuck. So please consider us a resource for that.
Yes, and I would say that, you know, we keep very close attention to what's going on with Elkai Elementary and their departure process and the additional costs that they accrue. And it is something that we, as Mary Ellen said, we're trying to push for code changes, and we are hopefully going to be in front of City Council later this summer. And it's something that we continually bring up. So if there's any kind of support that the project team needs from that area, let us know.
Thank you. Thanks for that invitation. Project team, do you have any questions of the committee?
I don't think so. This was great.
And
Great.
no
Well,
one-
thank you very much. We'll move right along.
All right, thank you. Thank you all.
Yes, approval of minutes. Speaking of Elk Elementary and information from it, Mary Ellen, did you have any luck getting more information?
Just a follow-up saying they're still working on it. So I'll just keep prodding a little bit. Don't want to be a bother. I know they're very busy, but we do need that. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Brooke, I don't know why it's highlighted as action. It's my bad. If there is, because you didn't have any action item there, but if you do have, hopefully have any updates about it, we could do it at the SPS update. I have yet to send a draft to the rest of the team who's working on the annual report. Hope to have it by the end of the weekend. Dan, do we know when we'll be able to present?
I talked to Aline about this because I was trying to just get it in the calendar for August. And apparently Saka's office is a little bit understaffed. And so she recommended waiting until July because she was worried that it was just going to get lost in the mix. So come July, I'll put in the request again. And I think because it's an annual thing that happens, I don't see a problem. I don't see why we wouldn't get it scheduled. But yeah,
Okay.
Seems like we're on track.
Thank you. City Council outreach, I've yet to hear back from Strauss and Morales, and I will keep you updated. I'll need a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any abstentions? Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Good, make up some time. SPS update.
Okay, I'm
First of
going
all,
to
SPS team, happy last day of school.
thank you. Happy last day to all the kiddos and parents of kiddos today as well. I'm gonna try and update you all with like a little presentation and just photos, and my updates will be kind of surrounding these 3 key goals that were identified. So one is around the cultural shift, so culture around active transportation. The second will be around leadership and guidance to schools. And the third is around initiatives and programs. And with that, and then you'll also see, I'm mentioning the 7 E's kind of framework that's set out with Safe Routes to School. So you'll also see those mentioned in my updates. And with that, I will move to some Safe Routes updates and pictures for you. So in the last month since I saw you all, I've attended walk and bike buses at Dunlap, South Shore, James Baldwin, and West Seattle. This is a picture from our Dunlap bike bus. I've been busy with a lot of events, so we did a fun pop-up mural voting with the Healthy Streets team with SDOT, and that was at South Shore and Dunlap, and it was a nice celebration of their groups, and we had the students vote on a street art mural that was created by a local South Seattle artist, and so students and families got to interact with that. I was out at a Play Streets event with our Play Streets team yesterday at Emerson Elementary for their field day. And I also done events at Chief South with Outdoors for All, adaptive bike program. And then we had a celebration of the walk bus at Gatsert. We had some representation at Muir's Juneteenth celebration last week. And yeah, another event at South Shore, a resource fair at South Shore. Around leadership and guidance, so I've done some arrival departure observations at Arbor Heights, Beacon Hill, and Washington Middle. I've been working with the traffic garden implementation planning team with SPS, and then identifying and starting to reach out to the priority schools that I want to work with for next year. And lastly, last time I gave you a quick update on the travel tally, that was coming up early June, and we are getting results back. So as of this morning, there were 47 schools that responded. Ooh, yeah, and I guess there are still some that are in the mail. I've reached out to a couple of schools, and they were like, I sent it, it should be coming. So I'll try and track those down. And I'm looking forward to starting to process through the data next week once school is out and I have more time. But yeah, that should give us a really nice baseline. Sarah kind of laid out a great process to get more involvement from schools last year by working with the PE teachers. So it looks like that's yeah, been successful again this year in getting more responses. So that'll be really nice to have the data to see how things are changing over time. Any questions?
Just quick shout out. I was gone and you were on your own with lots of support from Diane, but you did the travel tally. You were all over town with all the Walking Back to School Month activities. And I know it was a lot, and it seems like it was so successful. Yeah. It's so cool to see the bike bus going at Dunlap. Yeah. And all these other schools, James Baldwin, and
yeah, great. I've definitely been all over town, so I'm excited to kind of regroup this month and yeah, get some strategies in place for next school year and work on kind of processing what I've been up to over the summer. So yeah.
That is an awesome presentation, by the way. It's really, really cool.
Yay. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions or comments to Brooke before we move to Yvonne? Okay, Yvonne, the floor is all yours.
Yippee skippy. Okay, well, I don't have too much to report, basically, because I'll be doing a lot of training this summer because we're at the end of school now, so it doesn't do any good to get anybody trained until right before school starts. But I did get an article, a little blurb out there about needing crossing guards, and it was in the Pacific Northwest magazine. And that's that comes out in your Sunday paper. It's just a little kind of flyer booklet type thing. But it was an article, it's in the now and what's it called? Now and then section. And it basically says how to help a cause that protected Seattle school kids since 1922. And it goes over the student patrol. And it's actually a good little article in there. It goes over the student patrol. And you can't see this, but anyway, I don't know if you can see it or not. There's a little kid on there, and it shows him out. He's out there doing his little student patrol. Can you see that? I don't know if you can or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, but his location is 32nd Avenue Southwest and West Holly Street. And it says up there High Point School. Well, it used to be High Point School, but now it's West Seattle Elementary School. So they also, in the article, it shows my actual crossing guard that's there right now, showing her crossing and stuff. So it's a really good article.
When is
I
it
had
coming
a hard
out?
time trying, huh?
When is it coming out? Or did it already
It's already been out. It came out, like I said, if you get the Sunday paper, you would have it automatically in there. But you go online, then you have to kind of subscribe. So I was trying to pull it up. This is what I found online. But anyway, it goes over the safety patrol and just basically saying how they used to have a lot more safety patrols, more student patrols out there, but there's not that many. There's just a handful of schools that still do it. Okay. And it basically comes down to you have to have a teacher that's responsible or somebody out there with the kids. I don't do the student patrol. AAA helps with leaders and stuff to get them involved in that. And so anyway, but it was a good little article. And I just had a blurb in there saying I'm desperate for crossing guards. So, and I actually did get a couple of calls after the article came out. And yay. So anyway, so they know that we desperately need crossing guards out there. And just basically I said, every time they step out in the street, they put their lives in their own hands, trying to save the kids safely across the street. And you have to love kids. That's one of the main priorities of being a crossing guard, be out there and do your duty. So anyway, that's all I got for that. But I'll be working hard this summer and hopefully get more people in there. And it's just, I basically said since COVID, we lost so many guards. And we just haven't recouped them, haven't got them back since then. So anyway, still working on it though. That's all I got.
And Ryan found the article and dropped it in the chat to anybody who wants to check it out. Thank you, Ryan. That's very exciting, Yvonne.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. It's SDOT update time. And I wanted to show a picture. I think it's still loading. I don't think you got it, Dan and Sarah. Did you get it?
I haven't.
No.
No.
There's some art installation on 65th as a part of the work around Adams. So I wanted to.
I wonder if you share your screen, if that might work better. But in any case, thanks for taking that photo. Yeah, I can start off. The biggest thing is that Sarah is back in an official permanent capacity. So yay, celebrations all around. It's been, I mean, she had a great program and plan for Brooke and I while she was out. But obviously it's amazing to have her back, and we're back at it. A few things. We have flashing beacons, which will continue operations at 7 locations with summer school starting. So those will continue through the summer. School streets, 2 schools have elected to continue their programs over the summer to support their summer programs as well. So that's great as well. Let's see. Oh, learning landscapes were installed at James Baldwin. I don't know if you recall what those are. I can put a link to our website, which I need to update. But in the chat, these were the thermoplastic designs that were created to inspire some interaction between caregivers and students and provide an opportunity for learning. And they're just thermoplastic sheets that were kind of blasted into the sidewalk. And those went in at James Baldwin this past week. And I can just show you a quick photo that Ashley took of her kids interacting with these. They look really great, and we're excited to get them out at other schools in the future because they're relatively cost effective and can really enhance the school environment and create an opportunity for kids to interact. So this is an example of one of them. There's 4 of them. 2 of them are along North 120th. 2 of them are along Corliss. And then there's also an interactive kind of like word scramble at the bus stop at Meridian by James Baldwin. And I don't know, Sarah was actually out there yesterday, I believe. So you might have some updated photos if you don't mind sharing those. That would be great.
Oh, our comms team was there, and so I let them take all the photos.
Oh,
for them.
okay.
Maybe I have one I can pull up. But yeah, they're all installed and they look really awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll probably put out an SDOT blog about that sometime soon, and I'll make sure that you're all in the loop because it's a pretty exciting project. It started in 2017, so it's great that this is finally out there. And then Sarah, you had some other updates about some construction, some engineering updates, construction projects that just went in.
I just dropped a picture in the chat of a new RFB that we got installed on Henderson and Rainier Beach. We got in some speed cushions up by Sacagawea Elementary up in Northeast Seattle. Pulling up the list. Oh yeah, the painted bulbs at 65th, and I do have one picture sort of from far away, but I'll try and dig that up. Noah, if you're not able to share it.
I can share it. My pictures?
Okay. Yeah, you want to go for it? Oh, maybe I've done this before, accidentally leaving the call rather than hitting share.
I'm admitting her now, so she should be in a second.
Okay,
there we go.
Okay.
Sorry, the leave button is just next to the share button.
Yeah, I've done that.
Okay. Share. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. So that's art that was voted on by the kids at school. And prior to SDOT treatment, vehicles used to park like all the way up to the crossing walk. The new no parking signs are new. And I assume that those poles are going to come all around here and really, first of all, really ensure that people are not going to park there, but also allow kids to feel more comfortable stepping into the street and see if vehicles are approaching. And it is really, really exciting. And it's beautiful. So thank you.
Thanks for the photos. Yeah, it looks really nice. Our crews are getting to be so skilled at placing the thermoplastic. It takes some effort. And then the other thing is, Noah, I know you saw the email, maybe others did, come from our neighborhood greenways team about some neighborhood greenway projects that are paused. And it's a bummer because a lot of the projects were leading right up to schools. So they were hoping, neighborhood greenways really prioritizes schools. And so the projects that they are building this year all do lead up to schools. Because you had noted, Noah, that the ones that are paused are school focused, but most of the projects are school focused. And yeah, it was due to budget and crew capacity, but they're great projects. And so hopefully as you know, the budget becomes less of an unknown, they can be picked back up.
Yeah. Marianne?
Yeah, and I did notice every single one of those on the list of the paused projects is schools focused, which you know, looks kind of bad. Looks like they were specifically targeted. I'm just curious if you have any info on how the list was developed, or you know, when they might move ahead, if they will move ahead.
Right. They are moving forward with projects that are leading up to schools this year. And like one example is making the Healthy Street leading up to Dunlap and South Shore, getting at the permanent upgrades. They already did the Wing Luke Elementary extension. So that's a couple of examples. But I don't really have the specifics of why those projects were selected. I think maybe it's because they were less far along than the others. And, you know, in terms of budget, like we have the levy, and then, you know, just like budget analysis for budget projections that would come up later this year that would help to know when they could be unpaused. I do think it never hurts to let elected officials know that if neighborhood greenways are something that you care about, like to make sure that they know that.
Do you happen to know, I know you didn't make these decisions, but I'm just curious, all of the paused ones are neighborhood greenways. Were there other types of projects that were paused as well because of these, you know, budget issues, or was it just neighborhood greenways?
A few of our Safe Routes to School projects were paused too. Like in a couple locations, we were planning to put in curb ramps at a couple different schools, things like that. They were also paused, and we also hope to pick them back up soon. I don't have all the info on why exactly these projects were selected. One thing for Safe Routes, this is the last year of needing to deliver the levy, and Safe Routes to School, we've exceeded our levy goals. We still have a few remaining schools to deliver projects to, and we're on track to do that. But that could have been part of it, is having to really like tunnel vision focus on the levy projects that haven't been delivered yet. But yes, these weren't decisions that happened at my level.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions to SDOT? Okay.
I can just move on. The next thing is the committee membership updates. And so I can just say that Noah and Brooke and I interviewed 2 great candidates for the School Traffic Safety Committee. And we unanimously selected one to recommend for appointment to the mayor's office. And so I already sent that recommendation along, but haven't heard back from the mayor's office quite yet. But that's where that stands. So hopefully that appointment will happen pretty soon. which is exciting. And then let's see, Margaret and Brooke and I met about the additional member, potentially a WSDOT member and potentially a youth member. And after some lengthy discussion, it seems like a Get Engaged member is kind of the best route to go for many reasons. And so I've reached out to the YMCA coordinator of that program and have not heard back. So I need to just continue to reach out. But after communicating with her, hopefully we should be on track for maybe 3 months out. If we have all of our ducks in a row and it sounds like a good fit, getting that member approved and participating in our committee. So that actually makes sense in terms of timing for the fall. And sorry, Noah and I think Margaret had to step off, but
No.
Brooke, did you have any other comments or anything to add?
Sorry, struggling to unmute. No, I don't. But we're after all that, we're really excited for the new member, and yeah, I'm also hopeful that we could get a youth member involved in some way. So that's all.
Yeah. So then, do you have a sense of the timeline of, if everything goes according to plan, when would that member be approved by the mayor, when they'll come for voting?
Yeah, Aline is, unfortunately, it just seems like there's a lot going on right now. So we have not heard much. It's just sort of like a continual reach out and try to get an answer. So Aline is my contact to the mayor's office. So I haven't heard anything. She doesn't really have a good sense of an update. She knows that we're trying to fill this as soon as possible. Marilyn's position ended and she's not continuing on here. So my sense is probably a couple months, but I don't really have a specific timeline for that. But yeah, hopefully we can let the member know sooner rather than later, because I know that both of those candidates are waiting to hear back from us. So that's what I've asked Aline about, and hopefully we can have them on board, maybe even just participating in meetings without being an official member, just so they can kind of on board to the committee. But yeah, and then in terms of the Get Engaged member, there's a precedent for it because there are other boards that already have Get Engaged members. So I don't see a real impediment to that, but my sense is also like 3 months for that.
Thank you. The next topic is about the committee's responsibilities, if I remember it right. Yes. So this topic came about from Brute receiving an email from, I believe it was a principal. Is that right? Was it a principal or school administrator about help with traffic circulation plans for parents drop off and pick up? And well, reviewing circulation plans is on the committee charter. It's not something that we currently do, and we try to figure out exactly, what was that conversation? What happened? Mary Ellen gave us some history of times that the committee did do circulation plan. But currently we don't have the capacity or the technical knowledge. Yes, Mary Ellen.
To be clear, this committee never did the plans themselves, circulation plans, speaking about, like looking at where is the load and unload direction going to go, and speak and outreach to parents and stuff like that. That was Feet First, a nonprofit organization who did that. We just coordinated with them, and that was before I came on, but there was some overlap with Jen Nicole, who had been involved at that time, and the committee members never did it because it's always the sort of thing you have to pay someone to do. It's quirky, but Feet First had been filling that void about 10 years ago.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I just wanted, to take an opportunity to bring it up and make sure that kind of we're all on the same page, that Mary Ellen's knowledge and experience doesn't live just in her brain. And this is, that this is just not something that we do. Helping PTAs and principals figure out their drop off and pick up plans.
I think maybe where I got confused in the language is that we say traffic circulation plan support in some way, but that's referring to instances like Aki Karosi, right? Where we're doing, reviewing like a new building renovation or a new building project. And then we would,
Yeah, I can jump back in. One of the reasons that we advocated for there to be a staff member, Brooke, for your position is also because we first stopped doing this work. And so then there was just nobody who could help with things like, like walking buses, like all of these sorts of programs that are more about organizing people than about coordinating for physical improvements. So again, just that's the history is the hope was that SPS could start to take on more of that work internally, although obviously you can't make circulation plans for every school.
Generally the circulation plan is best devised by the people at the school who know it really well, but we can offer guidance, and Feet First put together a really good handbook that we share with schools. But in terms of our resource and time priority, a lot of times traffic circulation, the schools want it because they want people to be able to drop off their kids faster. And that's, not our goal. And so sometimes it does make sense for us to, take a close look and get involved, but sometimes it's not a good use of our time.
Okay. And thank you, Marilyn, for giving this history lesson of where the committee has been. Last topic for today is retreat update.
Yeah, so Margaret had to jump off. I think we've got our time set, right? The location is at the common space in Margaret's townhouse cluster. So she's going to send out more direct, directions closer. And it's just I believe it's just the next Friday morning meeting time, correct? So that would be.
And I think that based on last year, I might come just a few minutes earlier and do some wayfinding signs.
Yeah. So I unfortunately didn't realize when we first started, but I will be out of town for the July meeting. My niece is getting married. So if there are other people who are going to have to miss it, I would definitely be open to rescheduling, but I understand that, I'm just one person.
Yeah, Sarah and I are both out. I think we'd already discussed that last meeting. We're also out of town.
I am as well. Yeah.
So should we consider doing it on the 28th? Does that work for people? Or sorry, not the 28th, the
26th?
The 26th, yeah.
It works for me personally, at least.
I have interviews for a new employee scheduled throughout that day, so I wouldn't be able to make that.
Are you able to make the 19th, Steve?
I don't currently have anything on my paper calendar. Let me check my other calendar.
That's a firm commitment there.
That is a firm commitment.
I will not be there the 26th. I think I can make it there the 19th. I'm flying out that afternoon, but I should be fine.
Okay, well, maybe Margaret and I need to send out a schedule survey. I think that's, yeah.
Yeah, I think a doodle poll sounds like the best
Yeah.
way for it. Mary Ellen, did you say that you're gonna do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anything else that anybody wants to bring up that was not on? Okay, well, happy first day of summer, last day of school, all of the above. And hopefully we'll be able to see as many of you as we can in person at some point or another.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
That's good. Thanks.
Bye.
Okay.